Hey, so this is Daniel here. Before you enjoy this episode, um, we just wanted to acknowledge that this is being recorded during the WGA SAG-AFTRA strike. We are not influencers in the sense that we do not have any relationship with any studios. We are not being paid to talk about this. We are just two enthusiastic friends providing critical analysis of media that we really like. But we do want to make it clear in no uncertain terms that we do stand with WGA SAG-AFTRA. We are standing in solidarity. We believe that they are making very reasonable requests. If you listen to our shows, you know that we are already on that side of um, moving more towards socialism anyway, and making sure that people are aware of the ills of capitalism. I understand the paradoxical nature of um, enjoying things from these huge companies, but you'll hear anytime we notice them speaking to our more left leaning values, and we are definitely excited seeing actors start to speak about some of our values as well in terms of trying to take back the means of production and making things a bit more equal, and not just talking about money, but uh, as I said, making sure that they have more autonomy and not being scanned for AI so that they have even less control of their tools to work. So yeah, this is an ever-changing situation, I believe. We've heard a lot of different things about what's okay and what's not okay, but we firmly believe that without the labor of the writers and actors who are currently on strike, the stuff that we like would not happen. So if we find out that this is something we shouldn't be doing anymore, we will stop right away. But for now, we will continue to voice our opinions on these works, obviously without any incentive from studios, because we are not working with them. We do not want to have a relationship with them at this point, because they are rejecting very reasonable demands from WGA and SAG-AFTRA. All right, thank you very much and enjoy the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey, hey, hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. All right, we are still recording during a time where the struck studios are refusing to work with their workers to get work back on track. We're spoiling the finale of Secret Invasion. It's called Home. Here we go.
Not far from home, not homeward, not bound, nothing, just home. We're home.
Yeah. So Fury calls his wife. Interesting.
Priscilla.
Wow. Vara, but yes.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
she's not
get
Vara
there.
yet.
We'll get. Well, I mean, or was she always?
She was always Vara, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, right now, yeah, Vara and slash Priscilla, but still presenting as Priscilla in this.
So yes, we. I appreciated this exchange of just him saying goodbye, her hoping that it wasn't a real goodbye, like, oh, so when are you coming back, and him being like, I'm gonna let you go, and just, you don't have to if you don't want to. And even just like, it wasn't even a word he said, but he was just like, oh, like the way he said that, I was just like, yeah, this is I like this stuff, this emotional stuff.
I agree. It's them saying a lot with saying very little. And I'm like, that speaks to the depth of the relationship. And I'm like, I'm all for it. It's great.
Yeah, I like that it was, at least in that moment, clear that she didn't want things to be done.
Yes.
I appreciate it. And obviously that it was not an easy decision for Nick Fury. He wasn't just he wasn't doing this callously. Like, this was weighing on him.
Yeah, it was like either the episode before where he joked, and I'm like, I don't think that's a joke. That's he's half serious, but he's like, we either renew our vows or we
Hmm.
really divorced now or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no, this is them actually revisiting both those concepts.
exactly.
Yeah.
Uh, then we see. Well, won't spoil this. I wanted to do it somewhat in order, but it's kind of hard. Not hard to discuss this episode. It's just hard to do it the way we do usually do in order. But someone who looks like Nick Fury infiltrates New Skrullos.
Mhm.
I liked that cool creeping car trick and Nick Fury taking out the people. That was cool.
Yeah. I
Then
mean, a part of me was like, this seems sus. When is ever a carless or like a driverless car just gonna stop right there? I'm like,
yeah, I
I'm just
didn't
gonna
think
accept
about
the
that
fact
part.
that there's yeah, I'm accepting the fact that there's probably technology involved. Whatever. I don't know at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're seeing Fury be badass, quote unquote, like people wanted. Except
Yeah. So then Rhodey, we switch over to Rhodey, still trying to convince the president to
doing
attack.
a real bad job of it, by the way.
He's it's the first time he seems desperate, that's for certain.
Yes.
But I also
Mhm.
will give the show more credit and just be like, it's not really a plan he was invested in. Like I can see him just being like,
You mean Rhodey?
yeah,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
see him being like, just do it, come on, please just do this.
yeah.
I got nothing because
I can.
this isn't my move, so please just do this.
So I mean, I do see Rhodey being genuinely wanting this because it's like Rhodey's doing this because, well, this version of Rhodey is doing this because they want to basically have their home, right? So he's like, well, this is going to give me my home, but I certainly didn't want it to go this way, but it's a means to an end at this point, whatever. And like half, like really not doing a convincing job of it, to be perfectly honest. But
Agreed. Um,
yeah, it is what it is. Like you said, desperation.
yeah, he's. It's the first time you're kind of like, geez, all right. And
Yeah.
yes, I know this part isn't in order. They do way more flashing back and forth, but I'm trying
Mhm.
to just do this in terms of the hospital sequencing,
Yeah, because it's
which
rapid flashbacks,
yeah,
like
they go
cutbacks.
back
Sorry.
and forth. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So the next thing that happens in the hospital is that Rhodey gets a call from Sonya, which I would say is the first time in the episode where I was just like, oh, I think I'm ahead of this episode. I think usually you're like you want to be ahead of your audience,
Mhm.
or at least make them think they're ahead of you, but you're ultimately ahead of them. But
Mhm.
this episode, I feel like played out exactly like I thought it would, in the sense of not me being like, oh, I assume this will happen. It was just once certain things happen, like, oh, okay, that means that this is happening. Then clearly,
Yes. Yeah.
and so yeah, I was not faked out by Sonya Fallsworth calling and being like, Fury's coming to get you. I was like, okay, so this is a ruse, and it
Yeah.
probably like, okay, I see what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean,
uh,
they're being clever about it, but it's not a clever ruse to begin with. So it's just like you
No,
can't.
they're doing what needs to be done. So it's not
Yes,
like I'm
absolutely.
not saying like, oh, this show's trying to be clever. It was just more like because of the nature of what they need to do, I'm aware
Yeah.
of what's going to happen before it actually happens.
Yeah. The good old switcheroo.
But yeah, so well, we don't know that, but yes, and hold on, what did it? Yeah, gets call, and essentially they're trying to get him out in the open because
Mhm.
it's like, oh, when Nick Fury's coming to get you, he knows where you are, so you got to move
Yep.
the president.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what it is. Um,
And I do like the chess motifs within this, right? Because
mhm,
it's just like, okay, he's getting scared. In this situation, move the king from the castle where he's, you know, done all this kind of stuff. I really thought about like who are the chess pieces, and because by this stage of the game, it's very, very clear who each other person is, right? And all this kind of stuff. And the rook and the castle and all this kind of situation. Yeah, you have to break that up. That is a classic chess move. So they're doing a great job of doing that, and I like this part of it. But I'm like the bamboozle thing is just
I think that's yeah. You've said it way better than I have in terms of
mm,
because certain things are happening and just knowing how things work, like you using this chess motif, it meant that
yeah,
you were like, oh, okay, so that must mean this is happening, then this is going to happen, and
exactly.
it made it so that like both of us were ahead of the episode, which isn't
Yeah,
a great place overall for the episode to be, but here we
absolutely.
are.
Yep.
Oh, I wish I didn't do that. I messed up my place in the notes. But
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, that's my fault, not your fault. Um,
I'm pretty sure I had something to do with it.
so Nick Fury is going through this basically abandoned New Scrollos.
Yeah,
Other
he's
than the
seeing all
dead bodies he can
the
see,
dead
which is
bodies.
very
Yeah,
upsetting. Yeah, I thought
yep,
that was effective. It was
that
very
was very
chilling.
effective.
Um, and you can also start to see the which
Yeah,
then tipped me off
radiation
to the second.
poisoning.
Then it
Yeah,
also tipped me off to the second part of what is going on here. I'm like, okay, well, unfortunately for them, they keep promoting a movie that he's in after this, and at no point are they like saying that like
it is the most unfortunate thing
it's
about
just
this.
like okay, so this isn't him.
Yeah,
Obviously, this or he's doing this for show, or he's doing like if
yep.
it is him, he's doing this so that people can see him actively be like, oh,
It's
I'm
very
sick.
performative. It's
Yes,
very. It's like, oh, everyone, look at me coughing. I'm taking iodine pills.
yeah,
Like, oh, I'm
exactly.
being genuine about it. But
Uh,
and I like the radiation meter touch
yes, he
when
looks
he
at
first
it.
had it. I was just
Yeah,
like, oh, you could have just faked this without knowing what the levels are. Like, you could have just been like, yeah, it's bad there. I'm still gonna go. You don't need to know what the radiation levels are at that point.
or maybe it's like if I do it too soon, they'll be like, that wouldn't even have touched him there. If he at
Yeah,
least shows that he's looking, and then they'll be like, okay, he know, like, yes,
right.
that is where the radiation is.
Right. Or there was some sort of dialogue of like, or something like, remember, you only have 10 minutes before the radiation kills you. Like basically what Gravik does later on. It's just like, okay, it makes it seem like it's a suicide mission. And he's like, what? But I'm like, this is,
I just mean
like you
it
said,
would be
we are
more.
ahead of this.
I just think it would be more obvious that he wasn't actually sick if he
Yep.
wasn't in an area that was like highly concentrated with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think is the point they're trying to make. That
Yep.
like he's doing that so that like yes to throw people off, but as in the audience, but to throw the audience that he knows is watching as well.
Yeah, of course. Well, for surveillance, right? And I'm
Yes,
like, that
exactly.
makes perfect sense. It's like, you just like pranced in here, Fury.
Yeah.
So you gotta do that. And they're doing a good job, but we know, and it's just like,
Mhm.
it's like a dog faking an injury to get a treat.
So then he finally meets up with Gravik, drops the pills again, performative.
Mhm.
Gravik makes sure he can't get them, not make sure. And he says, "I just wanted it to be the two of us."
And
And
we literally fridged the rest of the scroll population
I
as a
don't know.
writing device in this.
I don't know if
Because
they're dead so much as they're like, "Oh, we're out of here. This guy's ridiculous."
do you think that's it, or like,
Well, they
do you
didn't
think like,
like that's a lot of empty space to have killed off that many scroll. Like I don't think they were all gone. I think the people who were dead are from the fight before, and then
right? No, I'm
everyone
not
else
saying,
left. Like I think
but
they
like
left.
the people that they literally fridged underneath, like under the whatever, like those are scrolls, right? Or are those all human?
They're human.
Oh, damn it! I thought they were scrolls too.
No,
I thought he got to the point where like, see, he's engaging his own people. He's not good. He
that would make
sucks. He's
sense.
kind of like that Killmonger vibe where he's like, I just want to win. But yeah,
No,
sorry, that's where I
uh,
was misinformed.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's just humans. So yeah, basically, it's a good scene until
Yes.
you've seen the whole episode, and you're like, oh, so they just never had a confrontation.
Thank you. That's where I was gonna be. I
but
was like,
but
yeah,
if we're going in the moment, I thought this was great. You learn
yes,
why Gravik looks the way he does, which does explain why the actor was like, "There's no point in looking into the racial thing of it.
right.
The character story
There's a different
is
reason.
this is the first human I killed,
It just
so
so
I'm
happens to be
doing this to
black.
haunt
Yeah,
you. This is to haunt you. Like you
right.
told me to kill this person, and then look at the path that sent me on.
Yeah,
So."
literally wearing my scars the same
You'll
way he
never
was.
forget about it. Exactly.
Yeah,
So I think I get it. I get how he came to that conclusion of don't worry about why I'm black or whatever.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, it's still there. But also, this shows didn't run for 6 full hours, so they just didn't have the time to get into stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, he talks about that, and I liked him just really getting into it
Mhm.
with Fury and being like, "What the fuck's wrong with you? Why couldn't you just keep your promise?" like you knew you weren't going to be able to help us. And Fury's like, actually, yes, you're definitely right. I wasn't going to be able to help you. I knew the only way to do it was to do it here. You weren't going to find a planet. And Gravik's like, well, then what the fuck then? Why didn't you just do it here? And I like what Fury says here, which was it's easier to save the lives of 8 billion people than it is to change the minds and hearts of 8 billion people.
That is 100%. That is one of the greatest lines in this episode. I'm like, yep, it's so easy to save people. You can't change their minds, though.
Wait, did I say better or easier? It's easier.
Easier. It's easier to
definitely
save.
Easier.
Yeah,
yes.
easier.
Yeah. You said it right. I didn't know if I did.
No, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was basically what it came down to. I can only just assume this is actually what Nick Fury thinks, but again, we know what the twist is, so it didn't really like. It might also just be complete bullshit. Who knows? But it's a good line, regardless. It is a good line, and I liked the conversation until the reveal.
Yeah,
which
and that's
I knew it's not like I was like, what? I was just like, right, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, because I'm like, my issue is that the dialogue here, the exchange is so good. Obviously, when you look back at it, because I watched this episode twice, and when you look back at certain things, you start to realize, oh yeah, that wouldn't have been a Fury response. That wouldn't have been. But then there's certain things that like, oh, that would be what Fury would say or something like that. So it's just like, how much of the memories does they take on is the question here.
They don't take any memories on unless they're in a pod.
Oh, that's wild. Okay, so this is just all like her freestyling.
That's what I'm saying. Well, that's why I'm saying I have to just assume this is actually what he thinks, not because of any in-universe reason, but because they wanted to show you what they wanted to explore Nick Fury's thing. Well, we'll see how I rate the show overall. The corners were cut, but I think that I don't.
Yes, I agree.
I don't think this. I understand where you're coming from in terms of, oh yeah, Nick Fury would say this. And I was like, I think like we talked about last episode where it was like, well, they're just rushing the Gravik thing. I just don't think they had the time to tell the story they wanted to tell. And maybe that is why we saw a bunch of people saying it's slow at the beginning, because there was a great pace to it, I thought. But then considering everything they wanted to get into, they didn't have enough time. And they shortened the episode length like drastically throughout, like in the last 3 episodes as well. So I understand what you're saying, and I'm sure actor wise maybe that is true, that all that, but I think writing wise what they were getting at was just like, this way we can tell people what Nick Fury thinks without killing him off. Yes, which is what I felt. That I felt that very much in that, which was like, well, this clearly can't be him, because now he's getting into a situation where he would just die. So obviously they're not killing him off for the Marvel reasons, but like I was just like, okay, so yeah, this isn't him. And then it's only after the episode's done, I'm like, so they really just never had him confront Gravik. So like, Gravik says, "Hero, you were my hero."
Yes,
sure. Then maybe that's it. Maybe it wasn't a father-son thing. Maybe it's just you're my hero, but it's still. It's why
have you forsaken us?
It's why I like the conversation, because if it really were Nick Fury, it would be like him actually acknowledging what he meant to Gravik, because he said, like, ultimately goes into, okay, I let you down, I know, and this is why I came back for you in particular. So that answers the question we had from episode 1 of like, what does Maria Hill mean by are you sure you just mean Talos? I think it was with the end of it, everyone understands you owe something to Gravik.
Yes.
So I think that's the payoff there. Unfortunately, Nick Fury is not actually saying it, but someone posing as Nick Fury is saying like, yep, I came back for you. This is exactly the reason I came back. Not to kill you, but because I owe you. Yeah. And I'll give you. This is where it gets muddy, because who knows if Nick Fury would actually think this. I think the show is telling us this is kind of what he would do, because he feels the grief of like, here's the harvest. I'm not fucking with you. You have the harvest. Take the powers. Yeah. But the deal is, you stop what you're doing now. Go find some other planet to fuck up. And I was just like, all right,
I
that's
believe the real Fury would do something like that because the real Fury is like all about protecting Earth
yeah.
and being xenophobic to that degree, right? And just like I would believe that. Just like go fuck up something else, just leave us
And I don't think
alone.
he's xenophobic. I think he understands as a black person that there's
Yes,
just certain things people
there's no
aren't willing
tolerance.
to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't see it as xenophobia on his, or yeah, I don't see it as. I think it is him being like, I
Right.
don't think you guys are gonna make it, and the show kind of gets into that at the end
Sure.
when the
Yeah.
president reacts the way the president does,
Yeah.
which
Does what
disproves.
humans do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's more his thing. I think it's less xenophobia and more like
Mm.
it's just not gonna work here for you. It
Right,
really
right,
like
right.
that's why I didn't try to build you a home here.
Right.
That leads to, and I think people bring up why couldn't they just do what New Asgard did, but I'm like, it's a bunch of people who look like humans. They don't look like Skrulls.
This is
Like
I
like
think one
that's
of the
this is
episodes.
this
Yeah.
is the show. Like you don't look like the right. You don't. Your skin doesn't look the right color for this.
And,
And
yeah. Sorry, go on.
yeah, that's basically what I mean. Is that I understand people being like, that's a big plot hole because there's New Asgard. And I'm like, there are aliens that look. Let's let's be clear. I understand Asgardians are aliens, but there are
Yes.
aliens in that colony we saw in Love and Thunder that don't look human. But like, you can just put that down to, well, that's their pet, or even if that's not the case,
Sure.
you can be like, well, that's like a one off thing.
Mhm.
They look like me, so I'm in on this.
Exactly.
Versus if and no, the answer wouldn't be, well, the scrolls can just stay here and then just tell them to stay human. That wouldn't make sense
Mhm.
either. The whole point is they want to be in their own skin.
Mhm.
And Nick Fury was like, that's not going to work here. He kept
Yep.
saying it, and then the show proved it.
Yep. And this is one of the things that I think is great about this show, but it never actually addresses is like that xenophobia aspect, as well as Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier, that they express like this is what privilege is. Like Asgard, because they look like us, get to actually get assimilated and be like, we're gonna accept you. We're actually gonna create land and allow you to keep your culture and then have diplomatic rights, right? That's what they're gonna do. And people are like, oh, that's not realistic. I'm like, really? That's not real. And recent, and this is like some of the theory stuff is like, okay, when they talked about in final scenes, like some of the Ukrainian border, I'm like, oh, that's why they cut out some some of this stuff. Like, remember when Captain Falcon Winter Soldier, they were like, the vaccine stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. They cut it around because of the timing of this. So originally, I think there was a huge subplot that was definitely missing
Yeah.
from this. But yeah, it's there's a lot cut, a lot of corners cut here, and this is one of those scenes.
Well, I don't know if this is one of those scenes so much as I like this scene, but it
Mhm.
ultimately is poisoned by the reality of who's actually saying this. But
That's why I say it's ruined by that because I'm like, oh, it's the rug pull, the bamboozle effect, and I'm like, I don't like because this whole conversation was cathartic, it worked, and I'm like, this is good character growth, except it didn't happen, and that's what makes me feel
yeah, it's a
bamboozled, and I
bummer.
don't like that. Yeah,
But yeah, I do like, again, I'm assuming you just have to take it that this
yep,
is what Nick Fury thinks. He said, I loved, not loved, I should put it that way, but he
Mhm.
just said, you know what I felt right before I blipped? Relief, because it meant I didn't have to fight anymore. Uh, and I think that's true based on what he said, like this whole time of like,
Yeah.
people being like, you came back and it's, you left again. And he's just like,
Mhm.
I just can't do it. Like I thought I was out, and then I came back
Mhm.
to a shit situation, and I was like,
Mhm.
ugh. So yeah, again, I can only assume this is what he actually thought, but
Mhm. I mean, I would agree with that. I think there's similarities in Fury and Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Tony Stark, and the idea that they wouldn't be able to rest until they were, that kind of idea, like Thanos and Iron Man's thing. But Fury's thing is protecting the world, so he would not be able to rest until until he basically something removed him. And it was like as he was aware of that was happening. I'm like, yeah, I understand that would be your feeling that basically all that weight is gone from your shoulders because it's carrying two battles here. And I'm like, okay, you're doing the Skrull thing and the human thing and protecting Earth and doing all that. I'm like, I get why relief would be that.
yeah,
It's a really, really good dialogue here. It's very honest. It's very vulnerable, but it
yeah.
doesn't happen.
Unfortunately, yeah.
No.
So basically, yeah, they're once Gravik has the stuff, he's like, okay, this is it. He verifies it.
Yep,
And
it's real.
they're both in the middle of the Dalton machine and gets blasted again. That's when he starts to try and fight Nick Fury, and Nick Fury stops the punch, and you're like, if you haven't caught on by then, you're like, oh, it's Gaia.
Yeah.
And they have a fight, and like they scroll through some cool character powers.
They do a lot of Easter egg powers.
For some reason, they're intercutting with other stuff during this fight, so I was like, oh, interesting choice.
I agree with you here. I'm like, this seems very, very weird. When during the fight, when Gaia does the ice spear or whatever to stab him in the heart, I'm like, why didn't you just like rock monster yourself? I'm pretty sure that would have made you a little bit more armored up for it, but nope. And they got some of Thanos' blood and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, this is wild visually, and it's kind of fun, especially like the first thing you see with Emilia Clarke being like, I'm going to use Drax's arm on this tiny little Emilia Clarke frame. I'm like, that looks like a giant baby arm. It's amazing. It looks so funny. But I don't think it looks bad. That's the thing. I don't think it looks bad. I just think it looks funny. It's a good fight.
I just thought it was weird that you wouldn't just stay on the fight. It's not. I understand the reference they're making to like Endgame or whatever, and like it's like this is the big battle, but so sometimes you cut back and forth. But it was just like I just feel like this could have been a fight to like keep people engaged in the moment.
I think they're also trying to prolong the action aspect of this episode, probably to keep the
you're not wrong.
Going.
I would doubt you'd be wrong. Yeah, I mean, basically, she wins. As you said, she stabs him. She wins.
She does the Captain Marvel thing. I've got nothing to prove. Blast you through the stomach. You dead now.
He's dead. And then she goes and releases the humans. Something that wasn't answered. Well, two things that weren't answered. One, how long has Rhodey been a Skrull? Because they're just like, it's been a long time. I'm like, what? How long?
They have not answered that. Yeah.
Obviously, it's after the events of Civil War because he can't use his legs. But like, come on.
So my thing is,
which then robs him of that moment in Endgame where he's mourning, which I loved. That it was like, oh, everyone remembers that Spider-Man's there, but it's like actually Rhodey and Tony have a moment by themselves before everyone else, the white people, join in on this.
Yes, true. It's like, oh, Gwyneth Paltrow's here.
And it's like, all right, I guess. Great. Yeah. Then we've just robbed ourselves of that moment too.
So I mean, I've got to go through the scenes and all that kind of stuff, but the best indication is at what point, and I'm like, this is a sloppy thing from the Skrulls, but the idea of like, at what point do the crutches or the leg assisting machines just not appear? And I think the first time I can think about it is like Falcon Winter Soldier, where he appears in the Emmy nominated scene, where I'm like, oh yeah, that's when we both commented, like, I don't know if we like, but the crutches are gone. So I assume it was there because in the Endgame scene, in the final Tony farewell thing, he's still got the crutches on top of the black suit. So I'm like, that's the best indication I can think of.
So you think it's Falcon Winter Soldier?
I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is before Falcon Winter Soldier, obviously, but at some point during that blip, like they said, they got to come in and do whatever. But the Rhodey thing was after the fact, I think. I think it's just definitely after Endgame because I think that's real Endgame leg stuff. Like that's my best indication. But it would be dumb if it was like, oh yeah, it was Skrull Rhodey was there during Endgame the entire time. I'm like, that would suck.
Yeah,
because this Skrull, this like Sonya says like earlier, is like, you didn't check the corners. Wow, you really are a Skrull.
Yeah, but the other thing they don't answer, in addition to how long has Rhodey been a Skrull, or even what's his face, Martin Freeman, is because he tries to act like, oh, I'm a.
How long you been here?
Like as if he's like some like professional. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you mean? What are you doing here, man? Are you here too?
Like such a weird response. But I'm glad I was right. I'm like, yep, we're gonna see Martin Freeman again.
So. Yes, you were right on that. They also didn't really explain, unless those sheets protect them from the thing, but kept
That's my
seeing them.
automatic assumption.
You
Is
kept
that
seeing them out of those sheets, so like I didn't like. Whenever she went to like, hey, go get the guy, it was like he's not in the sheet. That's enough time to fuck with his body. If you're telling me they take them in and out of the packaging, it just didn't really make sense how they're like how like quickly. And again, it's not really Nick Fury, so who knows? But like, I can only assume they're trying to show you what it would really look like if he was there as a human.
Yeah.
And so like how quickly it affects him would affect them while they've got them out just standing there like doing the mind stuff. Like that would that would deteriorate the body. So I don't really know how everyone was able to just, or even them leaving the area. Like they didn't leave in those bags. They were just like, all right, we're done.
Good now. Yeah. That was one of the things I said, and I think like a previous episode where I'm like, if that when I brought up the idea of like, no, they have to bring back real Rhodey by the end of this, which they do, and then I'm like, okay, well, it's gonna suck because they're gonna have to answer the fact that he doesn't have radiation poisoning, but he's been down there for like since Falcon and Winter Soldier, and I'm like, that's a long ass. You would have that radiation poisoning unless the Skrulls were like, oh, Amelia Clark's character is like, oh yeah, we implanted them with this that makes them immune to this or whatever during that. Like, yeah, I could believe that, maybe, but that's me going the extra mile and be like, oh, here's a little device that I could write and explain away for you, not what actually happened. But you're right. This is a scene where I'm like, y'all should be dead now.
Yeah,
y'all should be dying.
This wouldn't be like, all right, well, just on your merry way, I guess.
Yeah, and I really wish that this was an off base kind of thing. Like they had a separate storage facility off base, or like, oh, there's like lead walls that they built, like some sort of a facility like that. You know how like in Blade 3, there's like, oh, this is the blood farm. Like if they had that with like iron or lead or something like that to make it radiation proof, I'm like, yeah, this is much more believable. I could get that. I could get behind this. But no, you're right. It's just raw radiation hitting their body for months on end in Chernobyl, apparently, and walking out completely safe.
So yeah, as I mentioned, while this is happening, we've been intercutting between the hospital attack. Again, some cool stuff of like Rhodey actually looking very paranoid, and I thought that was effective. And then the lights go like guys getting dropped, and then make the camera making sure you see that this time it was tranquilizer darts, not Fury just killing them because they're working with a Skrull, or not even knowingly. They're just, he's just like but yeah, then the lights go out, and this is where what you're talking about, where Sonya gets the drop on Rhodey. And it's just like, you're a fucking Skrull for sure.
You didn't even clear the quarters. You suck at this. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
And then, yes, Nick Fury makes his way in, showing, again, if we had done this in order, it would have proved he's not really there.
Yes.
He's not really at Chernobyl fighting Gravik. He's here in the hospital to get to save the president, I'm assuming.
The real king of the chessboard.
And, it is Sonya? Wait, I wrote that's... Oh, no, sorry. I couldn't read my own writing somehow, even though it's typed out.
That Comic Sans will kill you.
Exactly.
I'm joking. Daniel does not use Comic Sans unless it's ironically. I use it all the time.
I love it.
I got to start using it more too, just knowing how much it bugs
get on
people.
board, man.
Comic Sans all the way.
Nick Fury kills Rhodey.
Yep.
Rava.
Very satisfying. Very satisfying.
Right in the head. Got him.
Yep. Boom. Headshot, clean, purple blood everywhere. Violence in the MCU. Very, very violent.
This is a very violent show. Which I think also answers another question I had, which was all the swears seem to be not in this. Like, people would say, this is bull. And I'm like, MCU has bullshit and shit. Like, they say it all the time. I'm not expecting them to use the F word like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but I was just like, no, they say shit all the time, and no one says it in this show. Yeah, it seemed actually pretty clean. I'm like, maybe that's so they can get away with all the ridiculous violence in this show.
Maybe it's like, we gotta
maybe that stuff is cut so that like we can keep the violence.
Well, it's like you said, like that purple blood versus like that's a technicality that you can't show red blood. It's okay, but purple blood, cool. Like, it's that weird thing about
this is just a violent show. Like, you see people's hands getting split and people getting shot
People
in the face.
straight up stabbed through the chest.
Doesn't matter what color the blood is. It's just violent.
I know what you mean, but like the censors, like they have this thing where it's like, oh, just make it not red. I'm like, oh, well, okay, sure. We have to make black blood for people to spit up instead of red blood. Cool, whatever.
Yeah, they kills Rhodey, and the president calls off the attack because that was the big build-up, which was Nick Fury shows up, and the president's like, I don't know who to trust. And Nick Fury's like, trust me, you idiot. And he's just like, I don't know. Yeah. And Rhodey's just, I mean, till the end, just come on, what do you kill him? And then Fury makes the most sense. He's like, what do you have to lose? Just call off the attack. If I'm wrong, you send me to jail, put the attack, and then attack them again. That doesn't doesn't really matter. Like, this is stupid. Stop wasting our time. And then he kills Rhodey.
Yeah. Yeah, with a quick like sleight of hand movement thing, which I really, really liked. I'm like, cool, that's awesome.
Right, because Rhodey tries to put a move on Sonya sexually. He tries to get one up on her.
That still sounded sexual, but no, the gold gun trick.
Yikes.
Yeah, good old. I'm taking your gun from you because you lost your attention from me. But yeah, I by the way, really like the dialogue here. Where Rhodey's trying to convince, and like the other U.S. military person's standing there, and she's like, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe this is a bad idea. And then he's like, did you wake up with a side of stupid pills this morning? I'm like, what is this? Is terrible dialogue. At this point, this Rhodey doesn't even care about like anything, even though like the president was like previously. He's like, did you pregame before this meeting? What's like no effort to clean it up.
No.
Nope. Like you said, desperate. At this point,
he's desperate at this point and annoyed.
But we see why, because she dying. She died now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then they show the president being like, this is the response. It is kind of what Rhodey asked him to do anyway, which was like, they need to know who the enemies are. You need to get on air and explain the situation to people. They need to know who's responsible for this. So then he goes in and he's just like, it's the Skrulls, fuck them, and any other aliens coming to this planet. It's on site. I'll kill you all. And I was just like, I knew that was ultimately going to be his response, but like he's really saying that with a lot of conviction.
Oh my god, yeah! Like no PR person wrote that at all. It's like that was real anger. I'm like, like
he feels violated for sure. But I'm just like, so like we're not gonna be like that soldier that was like, okay, so there's some good Skrulls and some bad Skrulls. He's like, fuck you all. And I was just like, I even thought I was like, I must have misheard that because like. He's very aware of the Skrull that saved him, isn't he? Like,
nope.
I also was like, how would Nick Fury leave it in a position where, like, and I know he doesn't have control over the president, but it just seems like, and I'm not saying this is a fault in the show. I was just like, I really thought, like, wow, he really came out swinging. I didn't think that would be. I thought he would just say that out loud and like be like, okay, yeah, like, you know, it was this rebel thing, and then have him behind closed doors be like, I'm gonna kill them all. I don't care. Yeah. I was just like, oh, you said that out loud. Okay, great.
Yeah, I didn't think they would declare war on a national or an international broadcast. I would assume at this point because I'm like, that's insanity. Like, you don't even know. And he makes this threat where it's like, we know who you are. We know how to find you. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't know how to find them yet. It's just empty threats. This is a terrible idea. You don't declare war like that. And I like when Samuel Jackson was like, that's what you had that's a real one-term presidency crap. I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah, we'll get to that scene.
That sucks. But yeah, he does exactly actually what I was hoping he would do, which is act human instead of what Telos's naive kind of, oh yeah, we'll do the model minority thing until they recognize us. I'm like, no, you see, this is what happens. They just want you all out.
Yeah.
Kill you. We're gonna kill you all. Doesn't matter.
So yeah, before Fury talks to the president, he speaks with his wife, and he's like, he like goes back home. He tries to make a joke, and she's like, no, and he's like, okay, well, you know I'm going, like, so you should come with me, which I was like, oh, she'll definitely like that. Like, she was kind of just like, she asked him again, like, do you love this or me? And I liked this line delivery. I thought this was one of the stronger points of the episode, which was when he goes, "I love you," but then adds Priscilla, and to me that was like indicating like whatever this is, I love you, like what we talked about, like I love the being,
Yes.
but also acknowledging, but you only gave me Priscilla, so I love you, Priscilla. Like
Yeah.
this was your choice, like, and a later scene kind of confirms that he would have loved her if she looked like a Skrull anyway. Like
I agree. Yeah.
but like I liked the like I love you, and but adding Priscilla's kind of what it seems like screwed it up for him in that moment because she was like, oh, so not Vara. And
She-
I'm just like, this is it's still on you. Like you're still looking like Priscilla in the moment.
I
Like,
agree.
you cannot look like Priscilla now. Like this is a time where you could just look like Vara, and
It feels like, she did the thing, which is cross that line, asked the question that she never should have asked, if, and then she crossed the line, but now she's trying to pull it back almost. It's like, no, you did this to Fury. He's right. You did not give him a real relationship, but he did love whatever you gave him.
But I think that's it. That he's just like, whatever it is, I love this. Like, so like you keep trying to split hairs on like, oh, did you love me as Vara? Did you love me as Priscilla? It's like, well, you guys only really had the majority of a relationship is you as Priscilla. So
Yes.
what I think exactly what you said. What he is acknowledging is, I love what you gave me. So like this is that's all I can answer with right now.
And
and
the
I
thing
just
I
like
like
how
about it-
complicated that is.
Yes. And the thing I like about it, it's just like he just states that fact. He doesn't make demands. He doesn't be like, and why don't we change it? Like, it's not like and this is the point where I'm like, oh, this is real growth now. You're not trying to massage her answer a certain way. You're just like laying it out. You're actually being vulnerable. You're saying, this is what I want, and this is all I know. And he's being honest with her. And I'm like, this is character growth. Okay, I'm intrigued now. Like, this is
I think all the character
awesome.
growth stuff was displayed through his real reaction with Vara.
Yes.
I appreciated that. So it's not a complete loss. It's just I think we were missing that thing with I think that was a really big mistake.
Huge.
But I think
I agree with you 100%.
they still showed his character growth. They still were able to display it. It's just
multiple times. But
and it always came down to Vara, which kind of made me be like, oh, maybe that was what this was about. Like him getting closer to his wife, who is a Skrull, meaning finding that harmony with these people that he's taken on.
Him literally coming home. Boom. That's what you came here for.
He kind of leaves home.
Well, he comes home to her, and then he's like, "No, I gotta."
But he tells her, "Let's go." So he didn't really come home.
Like, no,
we gotta go.
Home is where she is. That's what he didn't say.
Yes, that is what he is acknowledging.
Yeah.
Without saying it. That
you are my home.
She,
and I love that. And like she has to actually fully commit to crossing that boundary, that line, not boundary, that line of being like, hey, you need to acknowledge me as a Skrull. I don't like this, because something Amelia Gaia said that episode is like, would you have known? And then she gets really offended. I'm like, I think a part of that offense is based on the guilt and shame she has for herself of like, I never tried. And now she's like, oh, I get being called out on it. I'm actually going to try now. And I love that for her character here.
Yeah,
because
she's like, no, I'm going to keep pushing this now.
Yeah, I love it. It's good.
So then we get the call between Fury and the president that you talked about, where he's like, "This is like real one-term stuff," and the president's like, "I don't give a fuck. This is happening. It does not matter."
You think I'm the only one?
Yeah, like I will not rest until I kill them. I don't care what you say. I don't care how it makes you look. They're dead. I'm killing them.
I'm going Trump mode. Boom! It's like, we're doing the thing. I'm like, yeah, great.
But basically what I liked about it is, while he's talking to the president, you're seeing the very real issues with what has happened, which is there's these hitmen that are going out, and sometimes they kill
the real human.
Sometimes they kill a Skrull, but they are also killing humans, and ultimately, I don't think they show it. I know they don't show it, but they're probably killing innocent Skrulls as well, just like going out there and going for it. And it's just like, you can't just be like blanket statement, fuck them, and the
Yeah,
person's like, watch me, it's
yeah.
happening.
Because Sonia Fallsworth's character highlighted a very, very real thing. Like, hey, there's no laws against killing scrolls. So literally, these people have figured that out, vigilante themselves out. We're going to kill people on live broadcast or
Hmm.
recording or whatever it is. We're going to kill Shooter McGavin on live
Yeah,
broadcast.
that
I'm
was
like,
very chilling to watch.
that's
And then when they
insane.
kill, like they kill I can't remember
The
who the head is,
French
because
NATO
she
person
because
or
she
something
was
like that.
not she was not a scroll. It was
She
just like,
was a
oh, she's
human.
dead.
And
Oh,
I'm like, great, Marvel, are we killing more women? Great. This is fantastic. You couldn't have killed the men that were also scrolls that we knew, but you had to kill the woman. This sucks, man. Like, oh,
I didn't feel that
Marvel's
way,
taking a big
but
L on the
nah,
women
I think
thing
that's
here.
you could feel how you want. I think that's a bit much.
Oh,
I
that's
think,
definitely how I felt.
yeah, that's
But she is one of the more
I don't think
memorable.
you could be like, you can't kill women ever. Like, it's
No,
like, okay,
I'm not saying
they're
that you can't
proving a
kill. I'm
point
just they're
that
putting
it
it.
meant more that they killed an actual woman. Like, that was
Yes,
the sanctity that they crossed there. I
correct, correct.
I
However, I will say one thing that when you cut back to that one scroll that was like, no, I'm opposed to this. I don't want this war. I'm not, sure, kick me out of the council. I love seeing her take down all those assassins
yeah.
or armored guards. And it's just like, oh, this is a scroll that, like they said, she knows how to fight. They know how to fight. She
Hmm.
has literally chosen peace. And I'm like, but not in situations for defense. And I'm like, I love that scene being
Yeah.
like, for those that connect that, that's a golden moment for you to see. Like, it's me holding back. It's not me admitting defeat. It's
Yeah.
insanely good. I love it.
I think, yeah, that's why I can't be like, oh yeah, they just killed another woman. I think they were trying to
Sure.
make a point, and they were showing you and have
Yeah.
showed you that, like, again, I do think that, like, if they committed to killing Amelia Clark, that would have been a problem, because it's like, well, yeah, like, we could,
Yes.
like, the fridging thing, but I
Mhm.
think it's hard for me to be like, you could never kill a woman because that's fridging. Like, I just feel like,
Well,
there's gonna be
yes.
people who die, and you have to show, like, the variety of that, and some of
I,
that will
I
mean more than
understand.
others.
I'm just saying that there's just in this show just a lot of violence towards women and a lot of bad writing for female characters. And I'm just like, this just it sucks that it's just like, oh, okay, this is you're right. It's just showing you in a very memorable character that was a scroll. Like, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember her being a scroll. Like, when they started showing you everyone coming out of the facility, I'm like, yeah, she's one of the more memorable people, and it makes a perfectly illustrated point. It's like, yeah, they fucked up live on TV, and it's just like, y'all just committed murder,
Hmm.
not a scroll. But I'm like, it's a very effective visual thing. But I'm just like, yikes, that was my first gut reaction. I'm like, yikes, you're just like really doing, you're just not doing great here with the
Yeah,
women
I think it's a
characters.
violent show, so for
It
me, it's
is.
like,
I mean,
yeah,
remove the gender for sure,
yeah,
but
everyone's gonna get it, and everyone did.
yeah,
Uh,
everyone did get it.
but
Okay.
but I that isn't for me to be like, oh, you can't feel that way. It's more just me talking about how I approached
Yeah,
it,
you
not
didn't take
trying
it
to
that way. Oh no,
not
no,
to
I didn't
convince
take it that way.
people that they shouldn't be like upset by that.
No, I was sensitive to it. I didn't get a sense that you were trying to be like, no, don't be sensitive about that.
Yeah, okay, good,
You were just being
good.
like, no, that didn't affect me the same way, or it didn't hit me the way it hit you.
No, I think
Yeah,
that it
and
hit
that's
me the
fair.
way it's intended, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that that should happen. It just felt,
Mhm.
it didn't feel as off as when they were like toying with the audience and be like, oh, another woman dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
Uh,
like Kobe Smulders, the Maria Hill.
Even
Like,
that, I'm like, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. I guess she's everyone's favorite character somehow, but like, I was just like, yeah, there's gonna be,
you're right
there's
about
gonna
with
be,
that. It's just like, wait, are you just getting mad about nothing right now? Because like, she wasn't anyone's favorite character. She was a big character.
I think
Sure.
what I think is true is that it will always be upsetting to see violence against women because of the society we live in. So that
That's
isn't,
100% true.
yeah, that is true. That
Mm-hmm.
is upsetting. I
Yeah.
understand the outrage. I just think that it's hard for me to be on board with never killing a woman
Oh, I
character,
agree with
because
that.
I think
Yeah.
that for me takes away her agency as this character that was out there with Nick Fury doing exactly what she wanted
Right.
to be doing, knowing that that was a possibility.
no, and the idea of like never killing a female character because she's female is misogynistic in nature. And I'm just like the idea of like, no, I'm just seeing a lot of it, and I'm like, that icked me
Yeah,
out a
it's
little bit. Yeah,
it's complicated. It's not as
yeah,
simple
it's
like,
definitely
hey,
complicated.
it's just my feeling was like, all right, well, let me like, to me it's always the medium is the message. Like, who's making this?
Exactly.
This seems like it was written by thoughtful people that maybe didn't get their thoughts fully realized,
Yep.
but they seem like thoughtful people, so it
Yep.
doesn't feel um as malicious as I've heard
Hmm.
other people say, and while also acknowledging that I understand why people would think that's a big minus for this show.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so that's that, and then Priscilla ends up showing up at the end. Again, I like this. It sounds like I'm being dismissive, but I liked showed up. She made you calling me Vara from now
Hmm.
on. She
Hmm.
shifts back into scroll form,
Yep.
and again, I loved the way Samuel Jackson played it. The smile on his face when he gets to see
The
Vara
real.
again,
Yeah.
because he didn't smile at her like that when she was Priscilla. He got
Yeah.
to see the being he fell in love with first,
Yeah.
and that put a genuine smile on his face when he saw
Yes.
Vara again. And
'Cause-
as I said, the first time they meet up in that thing, and he's like,
mhm.
I'm looking for not you. And I
Mhm.
know he knows who it is, but he's just like, so what's the deal with this look? Because
Mhm.
this isn't who I'm looking for. Is I feel like this kind of like, what am I trying to say? Reiterates the idea that he's like, yeah, this is who I wanted. You just never felt comfortable giving me this aspect of
Yes.
yourself.
I 100% agree with you. It's the smile that he gives. It's just like it's the smile that anyone gives anyone when you're like you're living comfortably in your own skin. You're not
Mm-hmm.
trying to be anyone else anymore. You're not trying to put on a show. It's just you're your authentic self, and that is an amazing thing. Like there's a lot of people that don't get me wrong, they would hide big aspects of themselves because they're afraid or they're guilty, they're feeling shameful, they have to hide for very real reasons, and that they just got into that hiding mindset. And the people that love them despite that, but when they can see that veil or that pressure or that anything get lifted from them and they're just living comfortably in their own skin, that is by far the happiest you could be for someone. And that smile said so much. I'm so glad you pointed it out
Yeah.
because I feel like there's a lot happening here that other people are not picking up on. And I'm
I
just
don't
like,
think people wanted to. I think they kind of
no,
were out
you're
on the
right.
show. And it was just like,
Yeah.
all right.
They didn't want to see what we clearly saw in it, but
Yeah.
these are great moments. This whole
Yeah. It all
thing.
becomes, I feel better about the episode having talked about this now, just like
Mhm.
remembering what they did with Nick Fury and Vara. I
Yes.
think that
Yes.
saved a lot of not great stuff that
I
ended up
agree.
happening.
I agree because the thing that I specifically love about this scene is that it's him acknowledging who he is now. He's not trying to inflate his ego up. He's not trying to say like whatever. He's being like, "Oh, the Skrull and the Kree are interested in peace talks.
He's like, and I
I'm
need
going
you.
to
I
do
want you
this.
to do.
I need this." And it's he's just like he recognizes his weaknesses. He's no longer I'm Nick Fury. I can do it all. He's like, "No, I need people." And he's willing to ask. And this
And he
is a
says,
version of him.
I need, you're the one that's good with people. She's like, well, you've got your own ways. And
Yes.
he's like, and I'm tired of them.
Yeah.
I want you with me. And I think that you're the right person to do this other thing. But I don't think it's just him being like, and I need you for this job. It really is like, I need you with me. I'm acknowledging that
Yes.
in addition to what you won't just be my wife up there. Like there is something that you will be required, like not required. Your skills, you will feel like you're contributing instead of just being there as my arm candy.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not just but the idea of like, oh, like a married couple, for example, having to relocate their entire lives because someone got a job somewhere
Mm-hmm.
else, right? It's not like that. It's like, okay, this is a situation where there's a job waiting for you too, and this is not, you're
And
not
we'll
going to
work
be
together
there.
as opposed to
Exactly.
like
You're not
what we were
leaving
doing
your life
before.
behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not leaving your shit behind. You're coming with me on this joint thing. And I'm like, this is the character growth that I loved seeing in Fury because the idea of him being that narcissist and all this kind of stuff. I wanted to see that he was capable of change. I wanted to be there by the end of the series, and he finally did. And I'm like, this is awesome. But in when we talk about the whole thing, I'm like, I feel like this show is much more interested in evolving the idea of Nick Fury or removing the problematic aspects from Nick Fury's character that we've seen so far and moving into this new age of Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that might be. And a lot of people are pushing back against that because they're, I think, wanting to be like, we want our boomer ways still. I'm like, maybe that's a problem.
Well,
This is a Fury that works with people now. That's good.
as you said, let's rate this entire season, not
Mm-hmm.
just this episode.
Yep.
Um,
I'm glad this conversation boosted this up a little
Yeah.
bit for you, by the way.
I'm gonna go with a 7.5.
Oh, I'm going 5.5.
Interesting. All right. Well,
Yeah.
there we go. I think, like Loki, they did some stuff that takes away some of the stuff that you could see as learnings for the main character, but
Mhm.
they kind of squeaked it out with the Vara stuff at the end.
Mhm.
But I genuinely feel like it was such a big mistake to not have Nick Fury and Gravik interact in any
Oh,
meaningful way.
Yes.
Especially because of what that conversation meant. And I know we're just talking about this last episode, but
Yep.
we already talked about like the Gravik arc.
Mhm.
In hindsight, feels like they just needed a reason for people to leave, so that it was just him and Nick Fury at the end there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not great, but I think that, yeah, we got a Twitter comment of people being like, no, like there was the double meaning to him calling them faceless and voiceless, and I agreed with it when I responded. I just think that it was the execution and the timing of everything.
Yeah.
I think this shows, probably like other MCU shows, really suffered from not having the time to explore everything that was there. So, and it seems like a focused enough show that they could have done it in the 6 episodes. It's just
I agree.
The odd choice to have like 30-minute episodes after like hour long and 45-minute long ones. It was just like, okay, well, you just keep shortening the time and painting yourself into a corner. But either way, I think what I like about these MCU shows is showing character growth, and we got it, just not in all the ways I would have expected. And given the villain of the thing and connecting those a bit better, but I still got some great moments and some great Don Cheadle stuff. So
yeah. This series for me, it was rated quite low. Because even though I speak highly about the things I do like, which is like that whole character growth, and you're right. At this point, I think you and I have connected to, or at least we acknowledge this more than any other podcaster or reviewer. But these shows are more character driven. They're not interested in those big blockbuster moments for the theaters. Do that at the theaters. This is good character writing stuff. I'm like, yeah, it sucks to have to write ways to be like, this is why you're not calling them the Avengers. But it sucks to know that, yeah, we're being bamboozled right now. And this kind of like, that's what makes me take away from this harshly, because I'm like, at the end of the day, Gravik, it seems like they just stopped writing him after episode 3. And I'm like, his de-evolution was so fast, it was so bad that it was just not a real match. And for Fury and Gravik to not have a final kind of thing, even though it's like, you're my hero, I'm like, oh, this fight sucked even worse. Why did you not go Super Saiyan mode level 3 or level 4? Because now you're like, oh, on top of me bawling out in front of Fury, who I thought was Fury, now there's no, I'm even angrier now that he dismissed me like this. I'm like, this sucks. This sucks how they wrote Gravik. They did him dirty. And Amelia Clark's character, I'm like, too much of a tool for me. From a storytelling standpoint, like you have to do this now, not genuinely evolve your own character, which is the only time I'm like, oh, you actually got your own character moment was when she, had that final scene with Talos, and it's like, hey, you're naive and I'm never going to do it like that. I'm like, cool, you're differentiating yourself from your dad. That's great. But fridged very, very short. I'm like, I don't like that. So this show took a lot away from me, even though I liked a lot of the character stuff.
Perfect. I'm going to end this now.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for listening, everybody. We are part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Game Movies, Contra Zoom Pod, Springfield, Googleplex. So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our show, and more shows. And if you want to hear older episodes of our show, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, Threads, Instagram @tdfspoiled. And we're on all the podcast platforms. So please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, follow along, do all that good stuff. And we'll be back next week with a new episode. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.